Your spending habits are not yours. They belong to a 7-year-old version of you who learned that money equals survival. And right now, in the next 2 minutes, you're going to discover which of the 7 spending patterns controls your life and how to finally break free from it. Because here's what nobody tells you: you can tell someone's entire childhood trauma by watching them spend $20. Not what they buy, how they feel when they buy it, the guilt, the rush, the fear, the need for control. Every single spending decision you make is being controlled by a story you don't even remember writing. Let me show you what I mean. There's a woman who buys fresh flowers every Friday, even when her bank account is negative, even when it makes no logical sense. She can't afford them, she doesn't need them, but she buys them anyway, like clockwork, like prayer. Because when she was 7, her mother only bought flowers when she was happy, and flowers meant safety. There's a man who hasn't bought himself new shoes in 4 years. The soles are literally separating from the leather. He walks past the store window every morning, sees them, wants them, keeps walking. Not because he can't afford them, because spending money on himself feels like stealing. His father once told him selfish people end up alone. He's been punishing himself ever since. 2 people, opposite behaviors, same root cause, survival. Patterns your brain created when you were too young to know you were creating anything at all. When you learned that money means safety, or love, or proof that you're finally enough. Once you understand which pattern is yours, you'll finally know why you do what you do with money. And more importantly, how to stop fighting yourself. Because here's the truth: there are 7 types of spenders, 7 patterns, 7 hidden advantages disguised as flaws. And you're about to see yourself in one of them. Maybe you're the generous giver, the person who can't stop buying things for other people, even when you have nothing left for yourself. You'll tip 50% while your own bills pile up. Send gifts you can't afford. Pay for dinner, again. Not because you're generous, because somewhere deep inside, you learned that love costs money. That if you stop giving, people will stop staying. Or maybe you're the fearful saver, the one who checks their bank balance 3 times a day like it's a heartbeat monitor. Who feels physically sick spending on anything that isn't absolutely essential. Who hoards every dollar like the apocalypse is coming tomorrow. Not because you're smart with money, because you're terrified. Because scarcity once destroyed you, and you'll do anything to make sure it never happens again. You might be the status seeker, the person who needs the logo, the brand, the car everyone notices, the watch that costs 3 months of rent. You'll go into debt for it, justify it, defend it. Not because you're shallow, because being invisible feels like death. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that respect isn't earned, it's bought. Maybe you're the impulsive escapist, scrolling through your phone at 2 a.m., adding things to your cart you don't need and might never buy. Or maybe you do buy them. In that moment, spending isn't about the thing, it's about the feeling, the dopamine, the brief, beautiful moment when the emptiness inside you finally shuts up. Or you're the impulsive escapist. It's 2 a.m. and you're scrolling, adding things to your cart that you'll never use. Sometimes you buy them anyway. Why? Because spending is the only thing that makes the emptiness quiet down. It's not about the product. It's about the 3 seconds of dopamine that makes you forget you're lonely. Perhaps you're the rigid controller. Every dollar accounted for. Every purchase planned weeks in advance. Color-coded spreadsheets. Budget apps. Receipt tracking. Why? Because when you were 12, chaos destroyed everything you love. And now control is the only thing between you and complete collapse. You might be the guilt-ridden denier. You make good money but won't spend a cent on yourself. New clothes? Selfish. Nice dinner? Wasteful. Asking for what you want? Unthinkable. Why? Because your mother cried at the kitchen table over bills, and you learned that your needs are too expensive. That wanting anything makes you the problem. Or maybe you're the minimalist monk. 17 items. Capsule wardrobe. I don't need much to be happy. You wear your minimalism like armor. Why? Because your parents' divorce was a war over possessions, and you decided that wanting nothing means no one can hurt you. Freedom isn't about less, it's about control you can finally manage. Here's what no one's ever told you about these patterns. They're not personality flaws. They're not moral failures. They're not proof that you're broken. They're brilliant. Your 8-year-old brain created a survival strategy when the adults around you failed to keep you safe. And it worked. That's why you still use it. That's why you can't just stop. But here's the problem. The thing that saved you at 8 is destroying you at 30. Because money isn't about money. It never was. It's about the question your nervous system is still trying to answer. Am I going to be okay? And every dollar you spend or refuse to spend is your brain's desperate attempt to prove that yes, you're safe. Yes, you're loved. Yes, you matter. Yes, you're in control. But what if I told you that your spending pattern isn't the problem? What if it's actually a hidden advantage you've never learned to use consciously? What if the generous giver has mastered the art of connection and just needs to stop using it as a shield? What if the fearful saver has mastered resilience and just needs to stop letting it become a cage? What if the status seeker has mastered influence and just needs to realize they don't need permission to matter? What if every single pattern has a superpower buried inside it and you've just been using it against yourself? There's a full psychological breakdown of these 7 patterns and how to transform each one from a survival mechanism into actual power inside the Hidden Money Report. The link is pinned below, but it disappears soon because once you see your pattern, you can't unsee it. And that's when everything changes. We're going to dive deep into how these patterns form, why they feel impossible to break, and most importantly, how to stop fighting yourself and start using your spending style as the advantage it was always meant to be. Because here's what we're about to discover. You've been a genius with money your entire life, just not in the way anyone taught you to measure it. So ask yourself right now, which one are you? Because once you know, everything about your relationship with money changes. Let's begin. Let me tell you about Ethan. Ethan is 32 years old, works in marketing, makes decent money, not rich, but comfortable enough that he shouldn't be broke every single month. But he is. Last week, his coworker mentioned she was stressed about her car payment. Ethan Venmo'd her $300 before she even finished the sentence. Didn't ask if she needed it. Didn't think about his own bills. Just sent it. 2 days later, his friend's birthday. Ethan bought him a watch. $250. The kind of watch Ethan would never, ever buy for himself. His girlfriend needed new tires. Ethan paid. His sister's kids needed school supplies. Ethan paid. His best friend wanted to go to a concert but couldn't afford it. Ethan bought both tickets. And at the end of the month, when his own rent was due, Ethan had to borrow money from his father. Again, his father didn't yell. He just sighed. That disappointed, exhausted sigh that said more than words ever could. You're 32 years old, Ethan. When are you going to stop doing this to yourself? And Ethan didn't have an answer, because he didn't know why he did it. He just knew that when someone needed something, and he had money, saying no felt like violence, like abandonment, like proof that he was becoming the kind of person he promised himself he'd never be. So he gave, and gave, and gave, until he had nothing left. But here's what Ethan couldn't see. Here's what no one sees when they're inside the pattern. His spending wasn't generosity. It was a hostage negotiation. When Ethan was 8 years old, his parents divorced. Ugly, brutal, the kind of divorce where children become collateral damage and love becomes a battlefield. His mother got custody. His father got weekend. And Ethan got a lesson he didn't ask for. Love is conditional. His mother was depressed, exhausted, working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. And Ethan learned very quickly that when he was good, when he was quiet, when he didn't ask for things, when he made her life easier, she smiled. And when she smiled, the house felt safe. But when he wanted something, when he needed attention, or money for a field trip, or help with homework, the smile disappeared. The exhaustion returned. And Ethan felt like a burden. So he stopped asking, and he started giving. He'd save his allowance and buy her flowers. He'd clean the house without being asked. He'd make her coffee in the morning, even though he was 10 years old and barely knew how. And it worked. She smiled. She hugged him. She told him he was her little man, that he was so mature for his age, so thoughtful, so different from his father. And Ethan learned the most dangerous lesson a child can learn, that love isn't free, that affection is earned, that if you want people to stay, you have to pay for it. Not with words, not with presents, with sacrifice. 24 years later, he's still paying. Here's what the research shows, and this is critical: spending behavior is almost never about the present moment. It's about the unresolved emotional logic of the past. In 2019, a study published in the Journal of Consumer Psychology found that people who experienced early childhood insecurity around relationships were significantly more likely to engage in what researchers called affiliative spending, spending money on others as a way to secure social bonds and avoid rejection. The brain doesn't see it as generosity. It sees it as insurance. Because if you're valuable, people won't leave. If you're useful, people won't abandon you. If you're always giving, you'll never have to face the terror of being unwanted. Ethan doesn't buy people gifts because he's kind. He buys them because he's terrified. Terrified that if he stops, they'll see who he really is. That underneath all the giving, he's just that 8-year-old boy standing in the kitchen, holding wilted flowers, desperately trying to make his mother smile. And the worst part? It works. People love Ethan. They think he's the most generous person they know. They call him when they need something. They invite him out. They post about him on social media. Ethan is the best friend anyone could ask for. But they don't call him when they don't need something. They don't check in when he's struggling. They don't ask how he's doing. They don't don't notice that he never, ever asks for help, because Ethan taught them not to. He taught them that his role is to give, that his value is in his usefulness, that his needs don't exist. And late at night, when Ethan is alone in his apartment, staring at his bank account, he feels something he can't name. Not regret, not anger, emptiness. Because no matter how much he gives, it's never enough. The fear never goes away. The need for proof never stops. And the question that haunts him, the one he's too afraid to say out loud, is this: would anyone stay if I had nothing left to give? Now let me tell you about Lila. Lila is 29, works in finance, makes 6 figures, lives in a small apartment with furniture she bought 7 years ago, wears the same 4 outfits on rotation, hasn't bought herself anything new, not clothes, not shoes, not even a coffee she didn't make at home in over a year. Her friends ask her to go on trips. She says no. They invite her to dinners. She orders the cheapest thing on the menu and feels guilty the entire time. Not because she can't afford it, because spending money on herself feels wrong, dangerous, like she's breaking a rule she can't remember learning. Last month, her boss gave her a bonus, $3,000. Lila immediately put $2,000 into savings and sent $500 to her mother. The rest she used to pay off a credit card she'd been carrying for her younger brother. She kept nothing, and when her therapist asked her why, Lila said something she'd never said out loud before: because I don't deserve it. She didn't cry when she said it. She just stared at the floor, like she was confessing to a crime. Her therapist asked her where that belief came from. Lila didn't answer right away, but eventually, she started talking about growing up in a house where money was always tight, where her parents fought every single month about bills, where her mother cried at the kitchen table, surrounded by envelopes she couldn't open, about how Lila learned that wanting things made you selfish, that asking for things made you a burden, that good daughters don't ask for new clothes or school trips or birthday parties. Good daughters stay quiet. Good daughters are grateful for what they have. Good daughters don't make things harder. And Lila became the perfect daughter. She got a scholarship to college, worked 3 jobs to avoid taking out loans, sent money home the moment she got her first real paycheck, never asked for help, never asked for anything. And now, at 29, with more money than her parents ever had, she still can't spend $1 on herself without feeling like she's stealing. Because deep down, in a place she doesn't talk about, Lila still believes that her needs cost too much. That wanting makes her bad. That happiness is something other people deserve, but not her. The brain doesn't forget these lessons. It doesn't outgrow them just because you get older or make more money. A study from Psychological Science in 2021 found that early experiences of scarcity, even when resolved in adulthood, create lasting psychological imprints that shape financial behavior for decades. The researchers called it scarcity scripts. Your childhood writes the script, and your adult brain just keeps performing it, over and over and over, even when the circumstances change, even when the scarcity is gone, because the fear isn't. And here's the part that breaks my heart about Lila's story. She's not saving money for anything. She's not building toward a goal. She's not planning a future. She's not protecting herself from disaster. She's just not spending, because spending feels like proof that she's selfish, that she's forgotten where she came from, that she's become the kind of person who wastes money while other people suffer. So she denies herself, punishes herself, keeps herself small, and she calls it discipline. But it's not discipline. It's penance for a crime she never committed. Because the truth that Lila can't see yet, the truth that Ethan can't see either, is this: the brain doesn't spend to lose. It spends to feel safe. And when safety becomes expensive, we call it guilt. But what if guilt is just the price we pay for survival patterns we learn too young to question? What if every dollar Ethan gives away is his way of saying, please don't leave me? What if every dollar Lila refuses to spend is her way of saying, I don't deserve to take up space? These aren't money problems. These are survival problems. And money is just the language the pain learned to speak. Here's the truth no one tells you about money. It doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you've always been. Every dollar you spend is a brushstroke in a portrait you started painting when you were too young to know you were holding the brush. That portrait isn't about wealth or poverty, discipline or recklessness. It's a map of where you learn to feel safe, and where you learn to feel terror. Because underneath every financial decision you've ever made is one question your nervous system has been asking since childhood: am I going to be okay? Some people answer that question by hoarding, others by spending, some by giving everything away, others by owning nothing at all. The behavior changes, but the question stays the same. And your spending style, whatever it is, isn't a character flaw you need to fix. It's your brain's most intelligent response to a problem you faced when you were too young to solve it any other way. Think about what that actually means. When Ethan gives away money he doesn't have, he's not being reckless. He's executing a strategy his 8-year-old brain developed when his father left and his mother withdrew. That strategy says, love is conditional, affection must be earned, and the moment you stop being useful is the moment people disappear. So he spends to stay stay visible, to stay needed, to stay safe from abandonment. When Lila refuses to buy herself anything, she's not being disciplined. She's following a rule her 12-year-old brain wrote when she watched her mother cry at the kitchen table. That rule says, your needs are too expensive, wanting makes you selfish, and good people sacrifice everything so bad people don't have to suffer. So she denies herself to stay worthy, to stay small, to stay loved. These aren't random behaviors. These are survival architectures. And here's what most people never realize. The threat these architectures were designed to protect you from doesn't exist anymore. Your father isn't leaving. Your mother isn't crying. The chaos that once destroyed you isn't coming back. The scarcity that terrified you has been gone for years. But your nervous system missed the memo. It's still running the old program. Still defending against dangers that vanished a decade ago. Still treating every financial decision like a life or death moment because once, when you were small and powerless, it was. And the tragedy isn't that you developed these patterns. The tragedy is that nobody ever told you they were patterns. Nobody ever helped you see that the way you spend money isn't who you are, it's who you had to become to survive. So you kept performing the same script, kept reinforcing the same beliefs, kept answering the same question the same way, over and over, even as the question itself became irrelevant. Until one day you look at your bank account and realize, I'm doing exactly what I swore I'd never do. Or I'm trapped in exactly what I thought would set me free. And that's when the real work begins. Not fixing yourself, not disciplining yourself into a different person, but seeing yourself clearly for the first time. Because once you understand that your spending is a message from the part of you that's still trying to solve an old problem, you can finally ask a new question. What if the problem is already solved? What if I'm already safe? What if the thing I'd been defending against for 20 years isn't coming back? And what if the pattern that saved me then is the only thing limiting me now? That's the moment everything shifts. Not because you suddenly gain willpower or discipline or control, but because you stop fighting a war that already ended. Ethan learned this sitting in his car, staring at a text message, realizing for the first time that saying no wouldn't make people leave, that his worth wasn't contingent on his wallet, that the love he'd been trying to buy was already his, he just couldn't see it through the transaction. Lila learned this standing in her closet, staring at a dress she bought herself, waiting for the guilt that didn't come, realizing that wanting something didn't make her selfish, that her needs weren't too expensive, that she'd been punishing herself for a crime she never committed, and both of them are still learning, because this isn't a one-time realization, it's a practice. A slow, messy, imperfect practice of catching the old pattern before it runs, asking what it's protecting you from, and choosing something different, not because the old way was wrong, but because there's a new way available now. A way where generosity doesn't have to be proof of worth, it can just be generosity. A way where saving doesn't have to be protection from disaster, it can just be planning for the future. A way where buying something nice doesn't mean you're shallow, it means you're human. A way where spending money on yourself doesn't mean you're selfish, it means you finally believe you matter. And here's what I've learned after years of studying this: every spending style carries a gift you've been using unconsciously. The generous giver has mastered connection. They know how to make people feel seen, valued, cared for in ways most people never learn. That's not a weakness, that's emotional intelligence most people spend their entire lives trying to develop. The only question is, can you give without needing it to be transactional? Can you connect without needing it to be insurance? The fearful saver has mastered resilience. They can survive anything, endure anything, prepare for disasters most people never see coming. That's not anxiety, that's strategic foresight that keeps them alive when everything falls apart. The only question is, can you prepare without letting preparation become a prison? Can you be ready without assuming catastrophe is always around the corner? The status seeker has mastered visibility. They understand perception, influence, the unspoken rules of how people assign value and respect. That's not vanity, that's social intelligence that opens doors most people don't even know exist. The only question is, can you be seen without needing to be seen? Can you matter to yourself even when nobody's watching? The impulsive escapist has mastered feeling. They're alive in ways that controlled, buttoned-up people will never understand. They know how to say yes to life, to be present in a moment, to feel deeply even when it hurts. That's not weakness, that's vitality most people numb themselves to avoid. The only question is, can you feel without needing to escape? Can you be present with emotion without needing to medicate it? The rigid controller has mastered systems. They can take chaos and turn it into order, build stability in an unstable world, create predictability where none exists. That's not obsession, that's genius-level organizational thinking. The only question is, can you plan without needing absolute certainty? Can you build without needing to control everything? The guilt-ridden denier has mastered care. They know how to put others first, how to sacrifice, how to love beyond themselves in ways that selfish people never learn. That's not martyrdom, that's compassion most people fake but never feel. The only question is, can you care for others without abandoning yourself? Can you love people without believing your needs don't matter? The minimalist monk has mastered letting go. They can detach from things most people cling to for dear life. Find freedom in simplicity. Need less and experience more. That's not deprivation, that's wisdom people spend decades in therapy trying to learn. The only question is, can you let go without needing control? Can you be free without needing armor? Every pattern has intelligence buried inside it. Every spending style has a superpower you've been using against yourself. And the shift from survival to thriving isn't about changing who you are. It's about using what you already have consciously, deliberately, with full awareness of what you're doing and why. Because money doesn't care about your reasons. But you should. Understanding why you do what you do is the difference between being controlled by your past and being informed by it. Between repeating patterns unconsciously and choosing behaviors intentionally. Between survival and actually living. And maybe that's the real answer to the question your nervous system has been asking all along. Am I going to be okay? Yes, you already are. Not because you saved enough, or gave enough, or controlled enough, or denied enough, but because you survived everything that tried to break you. You made it here. You carried childhood stories into adulthood without letting them destroy you. You adapted, endured, found ways to keep going when giving up would have been easier. The war is over. The danger passed. The threat you've been defending against for decades is gone. And now, finally, you get to choose what comes next. Not because someone's forcing you to change. Not because you're broken and need fixing. But because you're ready. Because you've seen the pattern. Because you understand the story. Because you know, now, that your spending style isn't a moral failure, it's a message. And once you can read the message, you can write a new one. Money doesn't change us. It reveals the stories we've been carrying and the safety we've been searching for. And if this story helped you see your own patterns more clearly, if it helped you realize you're not broken, just human, then subscribe to Hidden Money. This is what we do here. We don't teach budgets or lecture about discipline. We help you see the stories underneath the spending, the fears underneath the saving, the wounds underneath the wanting. We remind you that everyone struggling with money is just asking the same question in different ways. Am I going to be okay? And the answer isn't in your bank account. It's in understanding why you do what you do, and then choosing, consciously, compassionately, to do something different. Not because you have to, but because now, finally, you can. Welcome to Hidden Money. Let's keep uncovering what's really driving your financial life, together.